I watched 12 people walk into the Carnival funhouse, but only 11 came back out. I told myself I was counting wrong. Then a girl disappeared, and I made the worst decision of my life. This happened during a summer job I took at a traveling carnival in downtown Los Angeles a few years ago. I was home from college and just wanted some extra money before my senior year started. My job sounded easy enough. I stood outside the funhouse, took tickets, let people in, and made sure nobody got hurt. The funhouse wasn't one of those inflatable attractions either. It was an old building the carnival rented every summer. Somebody told me it used to be a mansion decades ago, but nobody seemed to know much more than that. The first few days were normal. Then I started noticing something that didn't make sense. I'd count 12 people going inside. Only 11 would come back out. At first I blamed myself. Kids ran in circles, families split up. People laughed and distracted me. It would have been easy to lose count, except it kept happening. 7 would enter, 6 would leave, 10 would enter, 9 would leave. It wasn't every group, but it happened enough that I started feeling sick every time someone walked through those doors. One afternoon, a blonde woman walked up alone. She looked like she was in her early 20s, maybe a couple years older than me. She smiled, handed me her ticket, and disappeared inside. I figured I'd finally say something to her when she came back out. She never did. Groups that entered after her started leaving. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I waited another couple minutes before convincing myself something had actually happened. I locked the entrance behind me and went inside. The place was a maze of mirrors, fake walls, narrow hallways, and cheap jump scares. I'd already walked through it during training, so I knew roughly where everything was. As I searched each room, I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before. A thin seam running down one wall. It almost looked like part of the decoration. Out of curiosity, I pushed against it. Click. The wall swung open. Behind it was a narrow hallway with no lights. I honestly thought I'd just solved the mystery. The hallway led to another hidden door that opened onto the opposite side of the carnival. I actually laughed. People had probably found the shortcut by accident and walked out without passing me. That explained everything. Or so I thought. Instead of going back to work, I kept exploring. Something about the building suddenly felt wrong. A few rooms later, I found another hidden seam. This one opened too. Only this time, the smell hit me immediately. It was damp, rotten, almost like standing water mixed with something dead. Instead of another hallway, there was a ladder going down. That made no sense. During training, I was specifically told the building didn't have a basement. I should have turned around. Instead, I climbed down. The deeper I went, the colder it got. At the bottom wasn't a basement. It was a tunnel. A real tunnel stretching farther than my phone flashlight could reach. The walls were old brick, soaked with moisture. There was no sound except my own breathing. About 50 feet in, my flashlight landed on a small white purse lying in the middle of the tunnel. I recognized it instantly. It belonged to the woman who'd gone missing. That's when the panic really started. I yelled for her. Nothing. I yelled again. This time, I heard footsteps, fast, running straight toward me. I didn't wait to see who it was. I sprinted back to the ladder, grabbed the first rung, and slipped. I crashed back onto the ground. The footsteps were almost on top of me. Then I heard a woman screaming, "Help me!" It was her. She came out of the darkness clutching her side like she'd been hurt. I told her to climb. She kept telling me to come back into the tunnel because someone else was still down there. I refused. I practically shoved her up the ladder before climbing after her myself. The second we reached the top, I slammed the hidden door shut. Outside, I kept asking what happened. She looked completely dazed. She said she couldn't remember how she'd gotten underground. She only remembered hearing voices somewhere in the darkness calling her name. Then she said something that still bothers me. She looked me dead in the eyes and asked, "Didn't you hear them too?" I called the police. While I was waiting, she walked away. Just left. I never saw her again. Police searched the building later that night. They discovered the property had once been connected to old Prohibition-era tunnels hidden beneath that part of Los Angeles. The Carnival owner claimed he never knew the passages existed. Maybe that's true. Maybe it isn't. I quit the next morning. What still keeps me awake isn't the tunnels. It's wondering who or what was running toward me in the dark before she reached me. Because those footsteps sounded a whole lot heavier than hers. The carnival was packed that night, but my girlfriend and I were the only two people who showed up for one particular show. It took us less than 10 minutes to realize those tickets weren't invitations. They were bait. This happened when I was 16. It was the week before summer break, and I was killing time in my town's library while waiting for my mom to get off work. I grabbed a random mystery novel from the shelf, and when I opened it, 2 carnival tickets slipped onto the floor. They looked brand new, not faded, not old, fresh ink, glossy paper, everything. The tickets were for our town's annual carnival, which had opened the day before. Across the bottom, they read, "Special Magic Show, one night only, 8:30 p.m., behind the big top." I figured somebody had forgotten them inside the book. Since there were 2 tickets, I asked my girlfriend, Emma, if she wanted to go with me that night. Free carnival tickets sounded like an easy date. The carnival was exactly how you'd expect. Loud music, rides everywhere, kids running around with cotton candy, long lines at every game. Nothing felt unusual, until we tried finding the magic show. It wasn't listed on any of the maps. After asking around, one worker finally pointed us toward a plain white tent tucked behind the main circus area. There wasn't a single person waiting outside, just one employee standing beside the entrance. He smiled the moment he saw the tickets. Not at us, at the tickets. He looked at them for a couple seconds, nodded to himself, then quietly lifted the curtain and told us to go right in. He never collected them. Inside, there were maybe 50 folding chairs facing a small stage. Soft carnival music played through old speakers. But there wasn't a magician. There wasn't an audience. There wasn't anybody. Emma joked that maybe we were early. We sat there for almost 5 minutes. Nobody came. That's when I noticed something under the chair in front of me. It was a girl's backpack, still zipped. Next to it was a half-finished soda and a cracked phone lying face down on the floor. Emma whispered that it was weird nobody had come back for their stuff. Then I looked toward the stage. A roll of silver duct tape was sitting behind one of the curtains. A couple of plastic zip ties were scattered nearby. My stomach dropped. None of that belonged at a magic show. Emma grabbed my arm and quietly said, "Tyler, didn't you tell me people had been disappearing from this carnival?" The second she said it, I remembered. A local news station had reported that 3 teenagers had gone missing over the previous month after visiting the carnival. Police hadn't released many details, and everyone assumed they'd run away. Suddenly, sitting in that empty tent didn't feel harmless anymore. I stood up and walked back to the entrance. The curtain was still there, but the door behind it wouldn't open. I pushed harder. Locked. Before either of us could say anything, we heard voices outside. 3 men. One of them laughed. Another said, "They're still inside." I didn't wait to hear anything else. We ran toward the back of the tent, looking for another exit. Behind the stage, we found a narrow hallway leading to a metal emergency door. It opened. The second we stepped outside, someone yelled, "Stop them!" I looked back just long enough to see 3 men running out of the tent after us. They weren't wearing carnival uniforms anymore, just regular clothes. We sprinted through the crowded Midway. People were everywhere, but nobody reacted. From a distance, it probably looked like carnival workers chasing kids who'd snuck into a restricted area. Emma nearly fell near one of the ride entrances, but we kept running until we reached 2 sheriff's deputies working security near the front gate. I remember trying to explain everything while completely out of breath. Within minutes, officers surrounded the tent. They searched the entire place. The 3 men were gone. Police later told us they'd found duct tape, rope, several backpacks, phones, and wallets hidden beneath the stage. There was also a service tunnel leading away from the tent that connected to a maintenance road outside the carnival grounds. The men had escaped less than 2 minutes before officers went inside. The strangest part came a few days later. Detectives asked to see our tickets. After checking the carnival's records, they told us those tickets had never been printed by the carnival. The serial numbers didn't exist. Whoever made them had done it themselves. The detective believed someone had been hiding pairs of fake tickets inside library books all over town, hoping curious teenagers would find them and show up expecting a private event. I still think about how close we came. If we'd stayed in those chairs for another minute, I honestly don't know if anyone would have ever seen us again. The man hiding inside the carnival funhouse stole my wallet. A week later, he used it to trick my girlfriend into driving to an empty parking lot. That's when I realized meeting him hadn't been an accident. Ever since that night, I haven't stepped foot inside another carnival. This happened a few years ago when my little sister begged me to take her to our town's annual carnival. I wasn't exactly excited. I'd been fighting with my dad all week, and honestly, I only agreed because she wouldn't stop asking. After about an hour, she got bored and called our mom to pick us up. I decided to stay behind. I wasn't ready to go home yet, and I figured I'd walk around until things cooled off. The carnival felt off. There were way fewer people than I remembered from previous years. The workers looked exhausted, hardly anyone was smiling, and even the ride seemed unusually quiet. I wandered over to the funhouse, thinking it would at least kill a few minutes. The second I stepped inside, I realized I was completely alone. Without people laughing or talking, it felt nothing like a carnival attraction. It was just silence, flashing lights, and rows of warped mirrors reflecting empty hallways back at me. At first I laughed at my own reflection. Then I caught something that wasn't mine. For just a split second, I saw a bald man staring at me from one of the mirrors. I spun around. Nobody. I figured another customer was messing with me. I kept walking. About 30 seconds later, I saw him again. Same sunken eyes, same gray clothes, except this time, he was smiling. I turned around so fast I nearly ran into a mirror, but once again there was nobody standing there. That's when I realized something else. I hadn't heard the entrance door open once. Either he'd been inside before I got there, or he knew a way through the attraction that I didn't. I stopped trying to enjoy the fun house and started looking for the exit. The mirrors made everything confusing. Every turn looked the same, and I kept running into dead ends. My heart was pounding by then. I glanced into another mirror. He was closer, close enough that I could make out the wrinkles around his eyes. I yelled at him to leave me alone. Nothing, not a word. I turned another corner, reached another dead end, and as I stepped back, a hand shot out from behind one of the mirrors and grabbed my wrist. I completely lost it. I screamed and punched at his arm until he let go. I stumbled backward onto the floor and finally saw him clearly. He was middle-aged, wearing gray from head to toe, with a slight gut and a face that looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. He reached toward me again. I didn't wait. Adrenaline took over, and somehow I found the exit much faster than I'd found my way in. I didn't stop running until I was halfway across the Midway. That's when I instinctively reached into my back pocket. My wallet was gone. There wasn't a chance I was going back inside. I found the nearest Carnival employee and told her everything. She looked confused more than anything. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "The fun house hasn't been open tonight." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Police searched the attraction from top to bottom. They didn't find the man. They didn't find my wallet. They didn't find any sign that anyone else had been inside. I went home feeling embarrassed more than anything. I even started wondering if maybe I'd imagined parts of it. Then a week later, my girlfriend called me crying. Someone had been texting her, pretending to be me. The messages said I'd broken down on a back road and needed help changing a tire. Thankfully, something felt off to her, so she brought her dad instead of coming alone. When they pulled into the parking lot, the car that was supposedly mine wasn't there. Instead, another vehicle was parked near the edge of the lot. Her dad barely had time to stop before 6 men climbed out and started walking toward them. He threw the car into reverse and got out of there before they got close. The only reason they knew how to contact my girlfriend was because I'd written her phone number on a folded piece of paper that I kept inside my wallet. We both changed our phone numbers after that. The police couldn't trace the messages because they came from a prepaid phone that was never used again. I still don't know if the man in the funhouse was working alone or if those 6 men were connected to him. What I do know is that losing my wallet that night almost cost my girlfriend a lot more than a phone number. And every time I think about that bald man smiling at me through those mirrors, I can't help wondering how many other people walked into that funhouse and never realized someone inside was watching them long before they ever saw him.